wake up in the morning,
Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of What Keeps Me Up Solving TV Mysteries.
On this show, we, your fellow couch sleuths, will be looking through the evidence of some of TV's most unanswered mysteries. Some of these shows are core shows in my life and that I constantly recycle through, like Frasier, Big Bang Theory, Scrubs, Modern Family, Bob's Burgers, and Community.
And it's that last one that actually got me writing this script, because Community is filled with fun, broken, realistic, but yet cartoonish characters.
$60? Hello, rich people? Troy's joining you. Yes, I'll.
And for those that know Dan Harmon, Community show creator, they know that he keeps a really good continuity throughout the years.
Yeah, he loves using Easter eggs, which he knows his fans love too. And these Easter eggs can actually add up to theories sometimes.
Those Easter eggs are definitely one of the things that I love about Community. The show is known to hide details and have seemingly unrelated scenes bleed into other episodes. In one episode, Abed delivers a baby in the background, and no one noticed. In another episode, Abed says he could deliver Shirley's baby, which no one really questions. Another bit is Beetlejuice being mentioned 3 times, and on the 3rd time, you can actually see Beetlejuice walk by in the background. With so many references, it's hard not to have unanswered questions. Much like the Scranton Strangler from The Office, Community gives us their own mystery, one which we feel we will answer beyond unreasonable doubt. From Community and the folks at 87.9 WKMU, who is the AssCrack Bandit? From this point on, the Bandit. Also, spoilers!
And since you are watching this, I'm going to assume you know of the Bandit. But here's a brief overview of Season 5, Episode 3, titled Basic It's one of these words again, bro. Basic Intergluteal Numismatics. I hope I said that right. Anyway, the Bandit comes back after a year of silence. Garrett becomes the first new victim, and that is followed by a rash of crackings that actually include Troy. Then we see Jeff and Andy spend the episode being creepy while solving the case.
Let me ask you two something. What is this, huh? What is this creepy business?
Then we spend the rest of the episode chasing down the Bandit, crime show style.
So, how do we solve a mystery with only 23 minutes of evidence? Well, all good whodunits have these key components. What happened? How did it happen? Who did it? Why did they do it? And let's start with the who.
So instead of going through everyone and showing all the details why they aren't the Bandit, let's just try to eliminate everybody. So right off the bat, it's not Professor Hickey, plus it wouldn't be fun. It's not Pierce, because we find out later that he's actually dead. It's not Shirley, because she's too busy making money in the background. I don't think Troy is it, too, because he was a victim. Jeff didn't do it because it doesn't fit his character. And as we seen with Britta, she was writing a book at the end, but it's not her. At this point, she would have Britted it. Abed went home, and so he would not to deal with the nonsense. And we can see Annie searching for the prankster and has alibis for a lot of the crackings. So it's obviously Duncan, right? We actually never see him get cracked. And if he did get cracked, it could have just been to throw off suspicion. So that's it. We solved it. It must be Duncan. And I see you checking how much longer is left in the video. So I'm going to say it's not Duncan. So if it's not Duncan, who is the Bandit? No one. Because we are looking for the AssCrack Bandits. So who are the Bandits? And more importantly, can we prove it?
Our first case is against Annie. Most people think it's her. What evidence do we have against her? Let's find out. From my theory to work, we have to look at episode from a different perspective. We believe Duncan is not only a red herring, but he's also Annie's scapegoat.
Exhibit A. In a scene, we see Annie explain that she mapped out the crackings of 3 people who were hit in a row. She said it took her 20 minutes to run through all 3. The Bandit only needed 10. And this is the first time she throws shade at Professor Duncan, implying that it has to be a teacher because of the shortcut through the teacher's lounge. Do you see a teacher's lounge? Is she mistaken? Am I? Or is she taking advantage of Jeff being in his phone? Either way, she has passed the blame to teachers.
Exhibit B. Annie going through her bandit scrapbook in the opening credits. Much like someone who collects mementos of their crimes, this early, subtle yet ambiguous clue is actually a resemblance to Scream. After the opening scene in Scream, we see Billy Loomis all sweaty going through Sydney's window right after the crime, out when everyone else is sleeping. Both the movie and the show give these obvious clues that we either forget or discredit since we got that information so close to the beginning.
Exhibit C. In this scene, right after Troy gets cracked, we see Annie finding a note hidden in the teddy bear that the bandit used to distract Troy, almost like she knew where it was. The note also gives us a clue that the bandit is a Dave Matthews fan.
Exhibit D. After Starburns takes the blame, Jeff feels that Starburns is lying and not the bandit. What does Annie tell him?
Let's just let it go.
To forget about it. Really? From Annie? Annie always plays the good girl who does the right thing. What changed? She then switches gears and talks about what's going on between her and Jeff. Distraction. She found a quick fix with Starburns' confession, and now that they don't have to chase the bandit, they get to hang out.
Exhibit E. Even the show itself helps Annie make Duncan the scapegoat. We hear Dave on the radio, and a roll of quarters is seen on his desk in this scene. While in the office she drops her keys, she starts to act like Duncan will crack her. Duncan doesn't want to crack her. He probably just wants to look at her butt. This scene is taking more heat off of Annie and adding more to Duncan. Like in Scream, they fought hard to make it look like it was Sydney's dad was involved.
Exhibit F. The look. Everyone thinks it's over, that they've got their bandit, but Jeff isn't convinced.
Don't worry. I got a feeling he'll be back.
Or her.
Annie blurts out, or her. She gives a look that screams, "Oh no, I said too much." And as she walks away, you can see her think, "Nah, he won't figure it out." Suspicious.
Exhibit G. Also, you see that jacket? My co-host here tells me that when she finds things like jackets, she'll buy multiples in different colors. So what we see is a contrast of the black jacket to the white jacket, and this cannot not be a clue. It's the same jacket, just in a different color.
Exhibit H. One of the final nails in the coffin. Let's go back to Duncan's office. In this scene, Annie knew pretty quickly that the song was a Dave Matthews song.
Dave Matthews fan?
But I thought,
Ants do have butts.
No, these are Dave lyrics.
Dave?
Dave Matthews. Hardcore fans call him Dave.
she couldn't tell from the lyrics or even the name Dave. But somehow she now knew it was a Dave song in seconds of the song coming on. How? Because she is the bandit. Well, at least one of them.
So who is her accomplice? Well, it's none other than Abed himself. That's right, Abed Nadir, who I think was even the OG Bandit. And how can that be, you ask? Well, it's simple. If you're honest and if you really love the show, you know Abed is obsessed with TV. This is a man who used paintball as an excuse to become Han Solo. He manipulated the Dean, Shirley, and Annie to live out his buddy cop fantasy in Season 1, Episode 20, titled The Science of Illusion. Making his own shows and even going on Cougar Town. For my theory, Abed is here living his crime mystery fantasy as the villain who got away without suspicion, a la Saw style.
Exhibit A. This one we got from Matt Pat. Shout out to Film Theories. Back in the cafeteria, Troy is giving his speech, which for some reason has bleachers. You briefly see Abed, but he disappears, and then our point of view changes to under the bleachers, right through night vision goggles. Let's be honest, if anyone has a pair of night vision goggles, it would be Abed. This is where Abed cracks Vicky, and then everybody runs. But no Abed? Not even comforting Troy like he had been after Troy got cracked?
Exhibit B. During Troy's cracking, we can see that Troy can't reach Abed on the phone. And that shadow behind him definitely has a svelte build of Abed, even down to the thin fingers.
Exhibit C. At the end, we see Abed deleting crime drama shows. Some think these are the shows he just watched. But earlier, when he left the group, he gave a lot of info on the genre.
using a social disorder as a procedural device. Wait, I see another man. Mildly autistic, super detectives everywhere. Basic cable, painful writing. It hurts.
He already saw these. He already lived out his fantasy. No need to watch when you already lived it, being the bandit.
Exhibit D. Remember this scene with Jeff and Annie? They were talking about the shortcut being the only way the bandit made it to all 3 crackings. Well, that's not really true. In another episode, we see this clip.
As the best athlete on campus, I need you to run to my office.
I am not the best athlete on campus. Abed is. I know you let me win the race.
You're a really good friend.
No, Abed. You are.
For the love of God, run!
Go, Abed, go! Before people sex one another.
This is where we find out that Abed is the fastest student on campus. So if it took Annie 20 minutes, surely Abed could have gotten it done in 10. Abed is that fast. He is also fast enough to run from the cafeteria after cracking Vicky and making it to the stables to make the phone call to the dean. All of this just to draw attention to Starburns. As I said earlier, if there is no lounge shortcut, you need someone fast enough to make it in 10. Abed is that fast.
So we found out the who, the how, the what, but what about the why? Annie to me is much like other uptight characters from other shows, like Monica from Friends. Uptight perfectionists who will do anything to get what they want. Not to go on a huge tangent, but in one episode of Friends, Chandler finds out about Monica's hidden closet. What was in the closet? A giant mess. Clothes and items falling off everywhere. Stacked up, unorganized, really unlike how Monica is ever portrayed. Her character needed one room of mess just to deal with her own neurotic personality. I don't see why turning into the bandit couldn't be Annie's release from hers. Also, there's a scene where Annie gives a class president speech. This is actually where we first hear of the bandit. Well, there's another thing she mentions.
The assailant, known only as the AssCrack Bandit, will be brought to justice. And I will balance the school's budget by eliminating administrative redundancies.
Okay, I'm in the room.
She wants to get rid of corruption in the school. I feel this motivated her to become one of the copycat bandits. So what corruption started this all? Dean Pelton charging $0.25 for water fountains. Back in season 3, episode 3.
Hey, Ava, can I borrow some change from the water fountain?
Keeps tuition down and it saves on water.
So maybe she wasn't the first bandit, but she took up the moniker to get at Dean Pelton. She did it for a year and stopped, till she needed the bandit to come back one more time. To take down the administration, she was willing to look for help.
So why did Abed take part of this? Because his overwhelming addiction to making his life TV? Well, Abed's motive was very difficult at first. You see, besides his obsession to TV things, there's not much to go on. There's that scene that sticks out to everybody where he's deleting his crime show dramas. So I decided to look into these shows, and what I found out points to Abed as not only being the original AssCrack bandit, but the mastermind behind all of this. First, let's take a look at Johnny Spectrum. After hours of research, I found out Johnny Spectrum isn't real. It's a joke riffing on the rash of TV shows featuring Aspergery detectives. A joke even Abed does before storming out earlier in a scene we showed. Hence the name Spectrum. This is in reference of Abed also having Asperger's.
Yeah. Well, you have Asperger's.
Asperger.
It's a serious disorder.
Asperger for your head.
Next, we have The Bridge. It's a show about 2 detectives. One is American, the other is Mexican, from opposite sides of the border, working together to capture the truth terrorist. In the beginning, I did not see much of a connection, but further in, you realize that the villain is motivated by telling the truth of the corruption where he's from. This coincides with Annie's motivation of stopping the corruption at Greendale, and to get the truth out, one crack at a time.
Lastly, we have Hannibal, a TV show set before the Hannibal movies. And we have Dr. Hannibal Lecter called in on a case for advice. A recent body was found, and Dr. Lecter helps put together a profile. The bad guy in these episodes was a man named Garrett Hobbs. Garrett, like the guy that got cracked the first time in the beginning of the episode. Then, throughout the series, we learn that Hobbs is actually being encouraged and manipulated by Hannibal, much like Abed is doing with Annie. It's these 3 TV shows that set Abed back to being the bandit.
Still not convinced? Here's the last piece of circumstantial evidence. We remember that it was season 2, episode 17, that Annie first mentions the bandit. I always thought that the bandit sounded more like some college prank gone awry, and that got me thinking, if Abed is the original bandit, then what would his origin story be? Then I remembered season 1, episode 22, which would be less than a year before the season 2 mention of the bandit. In this episode, we see Abed breaking guitars, pantsing people, stealing a viral school's mascot, wearing a toga, and food fighting, among others. He did this because he has a list of quintessential things to do in college, which I think would most likely include pulling a college prank. A prank that grew into something Abed never expected.
Booyah! I'd bet $1 million this is exactly what happens. Abed's first cracking was because it was on his college to-do list mentioned earlier. Then Annie mentions the bandit in season 2, adding a little bit more exposure to the prank. The pranks continue with many copycats until Annie uses the prank of dropping a quarter down someone's crack as a protest to the dean charging said quarter for water from fountains. Abed then in season 5 gets into crime drama and wants to live out the fantasy once more, but this time as the evil mastermind. Abed is known to know the study group so well, he actually makes videos about them, and then the videos become true in their lives. He knew Annie was behind most of the latter crackings. He also knew Annie would love an opportunity to spend more time where she could team up with Jeff. Maybe, take that one more chance to make him hers. Then when Pierce passed away, Abed decided to retire the moniker of the AssCrack Bandit for good. And for those that say that that can't be because Troy himself was a victim, well, as we all know,
do they do stuff to your butt?
They're making us walk around with pretzels in our butts? I put mustard on mine like an idiot. I think you know I have a thing for butt stuff.
You rabbit butt stuff!
Booyah again. We did it. We solved it. Where do we get our medal? Abed and Annie are indeed the AssCrack Bandits. Well, that's the show. Thank you so much for stopping by. Check on your friends, check on yourself, because everyone deserves love, especially you. Protect your crack. Bye.
Bye.
This has been an 87.9 WKMU production. Signing out.